Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Wendy's session on cultivating adult SEL through staff meetings. I'm Kevin Drinkard. I'm the math coordinator at the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. Super excited that you're here and super excited to welcome Wendy. Wendy is one of our county's specialists in social and emotional and academic learning, and we're just super happy as a county office that she's sharing her knowledge and passion around the topic with us. So Wendy, thanks for being here. I'll be supporting Wendy in creating some breakout rooms, managing the chat and some other logistical pieces, but Wendy, this is your show, so take it away.
Thank you. Welcome everyone. And I'm going to go ahead and just start sharing my screen. So here's our topic, which is around, I'm really going to build on what Roni just talked about and go a little bit further into social emotional learning. I know many of you that are already on this call co-founded the Santa Cruz Silicon Valley New Teacher Project and New Teacher Center. And then most recently in the past 2 years, I've been a consultant and a coach locally and statewide around social emotional academic development. So let's start with, I know some of you had something similar with Roni, so I'm so happy to be building on what he already shared. So what I'd like for you to do, we just had a quick transition. So I'd like you to just kind of reflect on what's moving in you. What's moving in you? And I'd like you to check in and use a deep practice of listening to self. And it may be that you might take a moment to settle into your chair, get comfortable. Maybe you even want to stand up. You might have already been sitting for a half an hour. And as you do, let's roll your shoulders and breathe. And let's go forward and breathe. And just move your neck to one side, breathing in, exhaling to the other side. One more inhale and an exhale. And now just soften your gaze. Deep breath in. Out breath longer than your in breath. And do a scan. How is your body feeling right now? Start at the top of your head, going through your neck, your shoulders, your back, and just progressively relaxing as you scan all the way down to your feet. Especially relaxing your tongue and your jaw, the palms of your hands, and the soles of your feet. Now thoughts will come up. We have about 60,000 thoughts a day. Just notice what's coming up for you, that awareness. And then go back to breathing. So breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 2, 1, 2. Exhaling, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And just continue with this 4-2-6 breath pattern for about 3 more cycles. And now just coming back to a natural breath and just reflect for a moment. What is moving in you? You might take a moment to jot that down. It's a very open question. What's moving in you? All right. So just before we move into our breakout rooms, giving everybody a moment to come back, we just engaged in a 4-2-6 breath, and it's called diaphragmatic breathing. So we often breathe very shallow, right into our upper clavicular area. But as you exhale longer than you inhale, we automatically move into what's called a relaxation response. And so in a moment, Kevin's going to put us into breakout rooms with 3 people in each breakout room. And we'd like for you to accept the invitation, turn on your video and your mic. The person with the fewest letters in your first name begins, and just respond. What is moving in you today? And we're just going to have 1 minute each, and I invite you to do some deep listening to your partners. So deep listening. Kevin is going to move us, and all right, here we go. So as people arrive, I just wanted to mention that, whoops, I don't know why this is moving forward. So what we just did, and Roni alluded to this about the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is actually the longest nerve in the body. It's also called the wandering nerve. And look at this. It starts at the top of the back of the brain and goes into most of our major organs. So when you have a longer exhalation than inhalation, and in particular, when you are breathing in and out through your nostrils, you're not only moving into this rest and digest or relaxation response, you are actually giving support to all of these major organs. So it's just such a simple thing, and we're going to come back to this. Just remember, your breath is always at your disposal to be able to support you in relaxing. So this session is about integrating social and emotional learning, and in particular, making every single meeting and every conversation intentionally supporting the development of our social emotional intelligence. And this is a framework that we're using pretty much nationally. It's from the Collaborative for Academic Social and Emotional Learning. And you can see there are 5 competencies. In orange are related to self, cultivating our self-awareness and our self-management or emotion regulation skills. And then in green, that's other. So it's cultivating our social awareness and relationship skills. And responsible decision-making is always in play, right? We're always making decisions. So I want to hold that up, and we're going to debrief what we just did through this lens of social emotional learning. So what I do when I plan a meeting is just as if I were planning a lesson in a classroom, I'm thinking about, well, what are the engagement strategies that I want to use to get across the content that I'm interested in teaching? So for us, I started us off with a connecting activity. And I asked a very open question to have you reflect inside what's moving in you. And then I guided us in some breathing and some body scan. And we did a breakout group. So now I engaged you in talking with one another, and I invited you to do deep listening. So you can see on the right side, I was cultivating self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. It's about, I'm not talking about a program, an SEL program, I'm talking about a lens that, you know, pretty much everything we're doing, you can put through this lens of how am I cultivating social and emotional intelligence? Because that is what we need, and especially in this time. Okay, so just a quick overview of where we're going. I am part of a couple of statewide committees and teams, and one of them is a statewide Department of Education SEL team. And we met just recently on June 4th. And interestingly enough, with educators in diverse roles from across the state, we really discerned that when we come back, there are going to be some urgent SEL needs. And Kevin, would you mind putting the bit.ly, you might have already done this, into the chat so everybody can just access the, oh, you already did, Wendy's deck and power packet. Thank you. So you can see wellness supports. Now, one thing we've learned from high school students that have been surveyed over the last few months is that they are using more distractions, like watching videos and playing video games, and more distractions than self-care and wellness strategies, whereas educators seem to be doing more wellness practices. So just tuck that away. We're going to have, as you know, really a need for more trauma responsive practices to support students and teachers as well, right? This big one that Roni touched on, everybody's got relational needs. Okay, every teacher I've spoken to has said, I miss my colleagues, I miss just the fun and the laughter that we have as we pass each other or in the lunchroom. Okay, the lunchroom certainly is times where, we might not always be laughing, that we miss our colleagues. We are going to need to be prepared to have conversations to address racism and inequities. As leaders, we really need to be prepared to have those conversations. So it means that all of our staffs have to have these competencies, and we as leaders, we've got the big shoulders. We need to be ready. So our goals for today, just to support us in cultivating our own abilities to cultivate our own social emotional competencies, and then integrate those into our work with others. So here are some norms to support us, and I invite you to read them and maybe pick one that would be your challenge for today. This last one for me, I've found these 3 days, ooh, I have to watch the multitasking. It's like, oh, I'll just put her on the side here. So just pick one for yourself. All right, so we're gonna move ahead to the science behind emotions. And just briefly, we know that a teacher's social emotional competencies definitely have an impact on their students, right? If you're triggered when something happens in the classroom, then that is going to impact students. And this National Commission on Social, Emotional, and Academic Development from the Aspen Institute is such a great resource. You can go and download so many fabulous resources. Now, at New Teacher Center, we worked very closely with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. And we did a study a few years ago about the emotions that educators are feeling. And it came out to be stressed, overwhelmed, and frustrated. And then Yale just did another one in late March. And you can see anxiety was the top emotion. It's still a top emotion for educators. Right? We got a lot of uncertainty. Most of us don't even know what our schools are going to be like when we come back in the fall. And so we have to manage all of this. And our students are also. So why does it matter? Well, our emotions impact our ability to attend, to be able to remember, right? To learn new things. Our executive functions are impacted by our emotions. Even our ability to regulate our emotions, to be empathic, right? To read the cues, the social cues, to have a healthy culture and climate in our classrooms and in our schools, and actually our physical health and mental well-being. Bruce Lipton, who is one of the leaders in epigenetics, which is about how your lifestyle impacts your health and well-being, his major quote is, "Your thoughts become your biology." So as Roni mentioned, we really want to cultivate positive thoughts and notice, be aware of when our thoughts are negative, unwanted thoughts, because our body, our organs, everything is listening. Our cells are really listening to what we're saying to ourselves. So the good news is, when New Teacher Center and Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence did that study a few years ago, we learned that positive, supportive relationships actually protect our health and well-being. Teachers, educators, we had 7,000 educators reported greater resilience, less intent to leave the profession. We asked questions about, diet, exercise, use of alcohol, depression, use of drugs. And actually, when there were supportive relationships, people reported being much healthier. So that's something that we really want to pay attention to, especially in distance learning. I've seen so many just return to, okay, I'm going to tell you what's important, and okay, let's go. So I really want to impress on, we got to have relationships. So let's take a moment and relate to one another. Just what you've heard so far in the chat box. What's affirming? What's surprising? What questions do you have? Put in something from your own. Oh, relationship, relationship, relationship. That was Ellen Moyer's mantra in the project and New Teacher Center. Thank you, Clyde. Yes. Yeah, building in breaks, like Ronnie just said, every hour, take a few minutes to move. All right, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. So let's stop meetings for a second. So, I love you're still putting in our emotions, students' emotions impact, yes. More anxious. Yes. And feeling connected. And you know what? I love this, the importance of diversity. We all feel connected, and we're better as a group because we have these diverse perspectives and ways of being and sharing with one another. So thinking about meetings, every gathering really is an opportunity to think about, how do we connect with one another? Something that's relevant, something that's inclusive. And create some norms with your group. Visit them often. What we learned in the New Teacher Project and at the New Teacher Center is, if you can write your business and announcements and keep them to a minimum, give people time to read, then you have so much more time to have your meetings be learnings. Like really, we can't waste any time. So the more we can just, and even have a parking lot for the staff so that they can add things. So we want to dedicate most of the meeting time to learning, problem solving, discussing things, and adding in and integrating the social emotional aspects. And also, this is an area that most of us maybe need to get more comfortable with, which is just integrating stress management strategies right into the meetings, emotion regulation strategies, breaks, brain breaks, get up and move. I work with one principal. She has a Friday morning, 8:15 to 8:30 little coffee tea time where the staff just shows up, and she does something hilariously fun every meeting. And one time she just gave a scavenger hunt, and people were running around trying to find something fuzzy and find something purple, and like people were just running around. One time she just took everybody to a petting zoo virtually, and they were visiting with the llamas. And so think about what can you put into your meeting that would be fun and would be a break. And then, of course, closing the meeting with something, again, that's inclusive, just like we would for a lesson with our students. We want to have some closure and get feedback so that the next time you meet, you know what topics are most important. And what I found too is debrief the teaching strategies you're using so that you're building everybody's repertoire, and the social emotional development strategies so that everybody's going, oh, okay, that's easy. We just did that. And oh, I just cultivated self-awareness. Okay. And here's just an example. I'm just going to give you a moment to read of what it might look like in a 60-minute meeting. I know these meetings are precious, so. All right, now you have all this in your packet, so I'm going to keep on going, and we're going to start off with cultivating self-awareness and emotion regulation. So first I want to share a tool called the mood meter. So I'd like you to think about, first of all, the degree of energy that you have right now, from a -5 to a +5. Give yourself a number. What's your energy level? -5 to a +5. Okay. Now you see on the x-axis is pleasantness. From -5 to a +5, what's your pleasantness level? And now with your coordinates, maybe either find a word or select a word that represents your emotion right now and put it in the chat box, please. What emotion? What do I feel? Just put an emotion word in there. Thank you. And part of making a staff meeting really work is everybody participates. So thank you. Oh, wow. That's awesome. I've also been part of this wiki wisdom where educators from across the country are putting in ideas about how can we return to school in the fall. And one summer school principal mentioned that they're giving little baggies to each child. And in the baggies are blocks with a red, yellow, blue, and green. And the children put a block out. Thank you. Put a block out representing how they're feeling right now. And if it's red or blue, then somebody checks in with that child. And after the first week of doing that, most of the children moved into the green and yellow. And so just a quick little thing, it may not be a word, it could be even what's a weather word that represents how you're feeling right now. So if anybody wants more, I've included a lot in your packet. So, and always feel free to connect with me. We've got a lot of different ways to check in with feelings. Okay, now I want you to think about this feeling that you have and where is it in your body? Okay, so you could close your eyes for a moment, and where is that sensation in your body? See, often we call emotions and feelings interchangeably, but really the feeling part is internal. Where do you feel it in your body? Because every emotion lives somewhere in your body. So your ability to sense your emotions is called interoception. And the degree to which you can sense emotions, you can sense the messages that your body is giving you, is really the degree to which you can emotionally regulate them. If you don't know what your body is saying, you're just gonna hop right over that. And we'll get into that in just a moment of what the cascade is. So this is a website that you can find from the Dalai Lama and Dr. Paul Ekman, who's one of our foremost experts in emotional intelligence. Okay. So ways that we can cultivate self-awareness in our staff: invite folks to share and reflect deeply, and make accurate self-perceptions. I've included a number of self-assessments in your packet. We want to surface, like, have people think about their biases and their judgments and their mindsets, and how those then impact how we show up in the world, right? If we can't reflect accurately on who we are and what we're thinking and what we're believing, then we really don't have much chance of changing it and making a different decision. And this noticing, this awareness. So I've already started on the sensations in the body and messages and our emotions and our thoughts. Like, what are we thinking? Okay. So we're going to move into emotion regulation. And did you know that stress dessert spelled backwards? So, okay, put in the chat box, what stresses you out? Let's see, what stresses us out? Yes, I'm with you, Olivia. Timelines, pressure. I'll add that. Yeah, well, hopefully this isn't wasted time, right? What else? Yeah, teachers really do feel a work overload. That's part of the overwhelm that came up in that survey a few years ago. All right, so we're going to keep getting more of these. Yeah, we think we can multitask, but actually there is no such thing as multitask. You actually have to move your attention from one thing to another, and it takes about 16 seconds for your brain to actually move over to then attend to the next thing. So when we are doing a number of things, oh, I'll just check my email. Oh, I'll just do this. Like, your poor little brain, you know, is just going back and forth. And just know that we can't do multiple things at once. Your brain is actually having to do some adjusting. All right, so you can read the things that stress us out, and we're going to come back to that. So I alluded to this a little while ago, that very often we react. And the reason we react is because something happens, and unless we slow down and sense what's going on in our body, actually recognize we're having an emotion and label that emotion and understand where it came from, and take a moment to think about and reflect on what thoughts we're having, we jump right to an action. So we have to slow it down to actually be responsive. We have to not jump from the event to the action, which is not the easiest thing in the world. So here are a few emotion regulation strategies. And in your resource packet, pages 15 through 17, I've really gone more in depth with each of these. But the first one, stop, is the most important one. So if you can recognize that you just got triggered or something just happened, take a few deep breaths. Do that 4-2-6 breath and just observe. Observe your body, observe your emotions, label your emotions, observe your thoughts. You might be thinking, okay, somebody's late. Oh, he's always late. I'm just not that important to him. You know, what? So you're going to go on and on with your thoughts. So observe those thoughts and then put in some perspective. Well, maybe something really went on for him. Maybe he's got whatever. Put some perspective in it. Try and empathize. Try and put yourself in that person's shoes. Try and take a macro perspective. And then think about, now, what strategy could I use? What outcome do I want? Do I want to stay connected to this person, or do I want to just rail on this person? Where will that get me? And try a strategy. It might be the person shows up and you go, oh, I was worried about you. What happened? Okay. The second one is reframing negative self-talk. So we are hard on ourselves, harder than we are on others typically. So an example is just telling yourself, oh, that's too hard. When we started with this distance learning, there were a lot of us that went, oh my goodness, that is just way too hard. I cannot do that. Reframe it. Tell yourself a more optimistic and still realistic self-talk. Okay, I'm going to ask for some help. I'm going to go to somebody who really knows how to do this. Another one is reappraising, thinking about that situation in ways that, you know, let me put it in a bigger perspective in my life, or what lessons am I learning from this, or how might this change how I'm doing things. A self-compassionate point of view, I'll show you a slide on that in just a second. And then really having some self-care practices, stress relief practices. So here's an example of what you might do, distance learning. We're going to use Jamboard in just, I think we're going to use it in just a minute. Jamboard is a Google tool, so you could put up a bunch of negative self-talk. The staff can put up negative self-talk, like, what's wrong with me? I'm just not good at this. And then come back to it and invite people to reframe them. If you're in person, I usually have people write on an index card some negative self-talk, and then we pass those. You end up with one, you read what you got, you flip over the index card, and then you reframe it, and then read them aloud. So that's a really important aspect. And then this is the compassionate point of view. Like, just notice, I'm suffering. How am I feeling? How is this universal? And what would you say to someone you care about? Say that to yourself. Okay, so we're going to do a quick Jamboard. So Kevin's putting this into the chat box. Go ahead and visit the Jamboard. And let's put in things we're doing to recharge our battery. And more than physical things, let's put in what are some reflective things that you're also doing to recharge your battery. Now, on the left side of the Jamboard, you'll notice that there's little Post-it notes. You could add an image. You could just use a pen. You can use an eraser. I've populated it with a few. So head over to the Jamboard and let's add a few. All right. Awesome. Great. And if you want to put it in the chat box, that's awesome too. Perfect. And then you can move them over. Yes. And look, there's pages of them. So if you fill it up, then you could just move to another page. And just notice what are we doing to support ourselves? And in your packet, you'll find some self-care practices, the big 7, and also some self-assessments that you could use with your staff, and set some intentions and check in with one another. Okay. So you can always come back to this, and we're going to go back to moving to the next. Thank you for participating. All right, so cultivating social awareness and relationship skills. All right, so I'm just gonna read this aloud. Whoops. Groups can handle more cognitively complex tasks when we have social sensitivity, turn-taking norms, more positivity than negativity, more inquiry than advocacy, and we focus on others rather than ourselves. So what I've found, just like you would in a classroom where we're teaching academic conversations, we need to have norms around our communication. One of the things that I think made the Santa Cruz Silicon Valley New Teacher Project just a hallmark and the most amazing place to work was we all were normed around communication skills. And that's the same at New Teacher Center. So this is a main thing, that we're listening. We're reflecting back facts and feelings. We're building on each other's ideas. We're considering perspectives. We're inquiring. We ask more open-ended questions than close-ended questions. And you have this whole thing. Please feel free to copy anything and use anything with your staff. Okay, so you're going to go into a breakout room one more time. And the question is, what relational needs do you think educators will have when we return? And how can we be responsive to those needs? So it's very short. You're going to have 3 minutes. So get right to it. Okay, Kevin, let's go.
Okay, I'm sending you all away. The rooms should be mostly the same. We'll notice if you're alone, and if you are, I might move you again. So sending you off, join your rooms.
See how we're doing. All right, pretty much everybody's back. Woohoo! So there are so many ways to build relationships. Here are some of them. And then I want to draw your attention to, in your packet, you have a whole list of structures to support dialogue with links to those that are not just Google ones. So even you could do virtual open space technologies or Basecamp and world cafes. So give it a go. And then here's an example. I've been working at New Brighton Middle School in the SoCal district for a couple of years. Here's using a Padlet. This was in the beginning, teachers sharing with one another what's working, what's not working, what they need for distance learning. And then, as you can see, here are the strategies that I used for these last 2 learning activities, learning sessions. And here are the social emotional competencies that we're developing. So you have, Kevin put this in the chat box just again, you have a whole slew of resources that you can use. Please feel free, duplicate anything. And let's just come to closure. We have 1 minute. Something that you're grateful for, someone maybe in your group today, something for which you're grateful. And we'll just end with a little gratitude, because gratitude also returns us to a very positive mindset. So just jot one thing in and then take your break, stand up, move, get a drink, and thank you for joining.